Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and Merry Christmas. Jack, Conrad, this is the 45 Boxing Day preview. 6 matches tomorrow. It is hot in this hat, so we will endeavor to get through these as quickly as we can. Interesting time. We've got a very tasty fixture up first. The match at the top of the table, Leicester and United. Second place Foxes, third place Man United. Leicester won 3 of their last 5. That bad loss against Fulham, loss against Everton. Man United have won 4-5 with that single point in the goalless draw against Manchester rivals. Any hopes that United fans had for a Mauricio Pochettino sighting in Manchester in the new year, that's gone with him signing for PSG just a couple of days ago. And it's really unclear whether Ole has stabilized this side. Yeah, they've won 4 of 5, but they've conceded 7 while scoring 15. And in 4 of those matches, the wins, they gave up 2 goals each, except for the one, I think, the one draw where they had just the one given up. So,
at the risk of sounding like Michael Owen, I will say that if you score more goals than your opponent, you will typically
true.
win more games.
They had the 4-goal margin against Leeds, which they're leaky, but these two teams love to create opportunities that turn into penalties. We talked about that a lot with Leicester. They will really be looking to use their speed advantage against that back line, specifically Harry Maguire. I mean, that's why I think Ole, we've talked about this too, has done a good job of pushing those guys a little bit further back so they're not running, screaming for their lives.
Yeah, Pochettino, I don't believe he's fully signed with PSG yet, but it's the case of it's a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a United fan, you're happy to see Ole succeeding. He's a club legend, and he's doing quite a good job right now. The question has been his entire reign, is this consistent? Is it sustainable? He has learned some things that are sustainable, like Harry Maguire. We've said it ourselves so many times. The dude can't run. Just don't lower the risks that he has and play a deeper line. They've done that, and they've had some success. Fancy that. They have conceded more goals, but it's also coincided with Wan-Bissaka having some injury problems, which has been very rare for him, a player who's been very available for them. I agree, though. I'm very interested to see how Man United go into this, because this is a match that could shut me up and prove me wrong about Ole being kind of just an inconsistent manager, because if they win this match, they pass Leicester, and they kind of put themselves in a very clear discussion with Liverpool as the 2 teams that are leading the Premier League right now. If they can't win this game and they only get a point, then that discussion remains to be seen for a bit longer, probably until the new year. But if you risk opening yourselves up, and Leicester are phenomenal on the counter. They shift gears so quickly, especially because Jamie Vardy can create chances, can score chances like anybody else in the league. So I'm very interested to see what the mentality is for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because if they had to go for it, it would be a statement of intent, but it would also be a very big risk. So this could be a very interesting tactical battle, but I think
who they put in front of the back four.
Also another very interesting point there. McTominay potentially out. He was turned into prime Zinedine Zidane against Leeds. So I think there's a lot of potential for United to have a great result. Same for Leicester, though. They've kind of had a bit of a wobble, a bad loss to Everton, and a really bad loss to Fulham, who've been very poor. So a chance for them to kind of make a statement of intent, because obviously they are in the Europa League, and United we're in the Champions League group stage. They're now in the same Europa League. But the reason that was because of their head-to-head at the end of last season, the very last match of the season, which Man United ended up winning, I believe, 3-1. So chance for some revenge, chance to try and make a statement for both sides. It's going to be a great one. It's 7:30 a.m., but I think we're going to wake up ready to watch, because this United side, they're not the best in the league. They're a long shot away from that, but they are fun to watch when they play,
right now.
And they are controversial. And you know what? I'm happy that they are back to that level, because United are at their storied best. League's more interesting.
Next up, Villa home to Palace. So Villa sit 9th to a Crystal Palace side sitting 13th on 18 points. Just 4 behind Villains. Villa looked good over their last 3, taking 7 points after losing consecutively to Brighton and West Ham. Palace are coming off of that 7-0 destruction at the hands of Liverpool. They've only got 1 win from their last 5, but they did have good draws against Spurs and West Ham. We still don't know who Spurs are. We'll talk about that at some point. But I think these points are. We saw Palace not doing well. We saw Aston Villa doing well when we talked about this season going forward. So I think Villa will look to consolidate their position, move up a slot or 2 with a win here against Palace.
Definitely. Interesting enough, these are 2 sides who know a lot about 7 goals in Liverpool this season.
Yeah.
Villa put
Both
7 past them.
ends.
Palace had 7 go past them. I think they were quite unfortunate to concede 7. It was Liverpool were in a very pissed off mood and they were ready to score some
ready
goals.
to go, man.
And when Liverpool are like that, you have to just pray and hope that doesn't happen. Villa, I think it's no coincidence that Ross Barkley having a dip in fitness also coincides with a bit of a dip in form for them.
He and Konza look like they're going to be back.
Potentially, that's a big deal for them because when him and McGinn and Douglas Luiz, all those guys in the midfield, there's very good options in the middle of the park, and it makes Jack Grealish's job easier. And an interesting stat from PremierLeague.com, they have the joint most clean sheets in the league, despite having, I believe, is it still 2 games in hand? Yeah, they still have 2 games in hand because they're canceled one, and the one from the very beginning of the year. So 7 clean sheets from 12 matches. That's a remarkable turnaround for a side who only had 7 clean sheets in 38 last year. So while we're talking about the creative exploits of Jack Grealish, we're also talking about the defensive nuances that they have, and a lot of that is down to one of our favorite goalies, Emi Martinez, has been great. I think Villa will favor themselves in this match. They'll say that last year this could have been a potential, not relegation 6-pointer, but a side you would have wanted to try and get near to last year. You're ahead of them this year. Put some authority down. You have 2 games in hand. You have a great chance to make some leaps up the table.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, so 22 points. You can't just say you win your 2 games in hand.
One of them's against
United.
United.
Against United. But say you win those 2 games in hand, Aston Villa would be in second place, 28 points. They have so much potential if they can just get some results. This kind of match, you got to take it. At home, side you should beat. And look to get Jack Grealish to kind of be the man here.
And Palace will be without Cahill, who suffered a hamstring running for his life against Liverpool last time out. Next up, Fulham against Southampton. No Scott Parker on the touchline as one of his members of his household, as they said, has contracted COVID-19. So he will be in self-isolation, but as he said, he will have a direct line into that sideline and have multiple monitors by which to watch this match. Meanwhile, Saints, no Oriol Romeu suspension due to accumulation, and then Danny Ings questionable with the hamstring. Those are much more difficult to overcome than a Fulham without a Scott Parker.
Yeah.
3 points this time of year are very, very important. Fulham trying to stay out of the drop or get out of the drop. Southampton looking to continue their challenge for European places. They currently sit 7th, just 3 points off of second place. It's very tight up there.
You know, when Fulham got promoted, and in the beginning of this season, we talked about their passing ability, their positivity that they have for a side who aren't that, they're not that good talent wise, and they had a lot of positivity to them. So they're a lot like Leeds, where they were a very positive side. They've kind of shaped up very well defensively. The last 3 matches, all draws. You dominated Liverpool, upset you didn't win that game. You had a 0-0 against Brighton, probably upset you didn't win that game because that's a relegation 6-pointer essentially. And then a 1-1 against Newcastle, which was a pretty narrow, I guess, solid result. So I think that Fulham, they've got the defensive side of things pretty good in recent weeks. And Southampton look a little toothless without Danny Ings at times. So
it's a tough loss. I mean, he's their talisman.
I think Fulham have a lot of reasons to be confident. Southampton, on the flip side, they're 7th. They've only gotten 1 point from their last 2 matches. So they really want these points to kind of keep themselves in that discussion for an overperforming team, because not a couple weeks ago, they had their admin posting on Twitter about how stop the count because they were leading the league. So I don't know. I'm very excited to see how this match shapes out, because it's 2 sides who I think are going to be very evenly matched because of the losses each of them have. And in terms of form, I think they're meeting at a pretty good spot where Fulham are a bit less talented, but they're on a bit better form. Southampton a bit more talented, a bit less form. It's going to be a good one, I think. I have a little less pessimism than you do about the loss of Scott Parker. I think just the difference, I can't imagine the difference of having him scream on the touchline versus him yell to the assistant, all right, I need you to yell it.
There's going to be 2 guys in charge, I think.
It's going to be very interesting, especially because there's no head coach on the sidelines. So
there'll be a contingent of fans here. I think they will have 2,000 fans in the stadium.
And remember, against Liverpool, if there are 2,000 fans, they made a big
loud.
difference. They made a big difference.
Speaking of London, we have a London derby, Arsenal and Chelsea. Pressure on Premier League managers is enormous. And pressure on someone like Mikel Arteta in the situation that he finds himself in at Arsenal must be 10 times. They are now flirting with a relegation scrap. His press conference, where he just kind of went on and on and on about the percentages of winning and losing, and it was very clear that he was feeling pressure. He doesn't need to worry about percentages. He needs to worry about that midfield. Still no Partey. Xhaka back healthy. Probably ought to keep him out. Alba, Martinelli, questionable. Chelsea, 5th on 25, performing okay over their last 5 with the draw to Spurs, win over Leeds, lost to Everton and Wolves, and then the clean sheet win over Hammers last week. Chilwell still out. Reece James, Ziyech also out. You wonder what his forward line is going to look like with Werner and Havertz.
Yeah.
Of
the
misfiring.
last 5 games for Chelsea, I think, represent them very, very well. So you 0-0 draw with Tottenham on the 29th of November, where you just were afraid to go at them because they beat you on the break. So a side that's better than you, probably, arguably, you want to sit back. You don't want to risk against them. You beat Leeds comfortably 3-1. You lose to Everton 1-0 because they were a side who's very good away from home, and they're a little afraid, it's not as good away from home. Then you lose 2-1 another away from home match against Wolves, another side who are worse than you, but also a pretty good side. They're a mid-table Premier League side. And then last week a 3-0 win against West Ham, a side you should be beating, and at home again. So on the road, they've been a little shaky this season, and I think Arsenal have every reason to fight their hardest in this match. You mentioned the players that Arsenal is missing and the issues they have. Gabriel will be back. Huge deal for them. Meanwhile, Chelsea might not have either of their starting fullbacks, Chilwell or James. Interested to see.
I think they're both out.
I think they're both out for at least the next 2 matches. And Ziyech as well, who is probably the most creative player. He is. Him and Thiago, they've just been injury plagued. We haven't been able to see their magic in the Premier League yet, and I can't wait. Hopefully 2021 allows us to see more of that. But Arsenal should not be rushing to sack Mikel Arteta because, yes, it's been bad. He's made a lot of mistakes. It's not just been lack of talent.
Manager.
He's a young manager. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. Are you going to double down on your hiring and say, I believe in this guy? Or are you going to just be quick to jump ship? I think the loss of Martinelli and Aubameyang, if they're both out, is going to be huge.
That's tough.
Because Martinelli
You're
is...
just going to sit back and hope for a draw.
I think one of the biggest things with Martinelli is he's young. So we say, if you're going to suck and be young. And he also just is a very passionate player. And it's sometimes frustrating because a player who just runs for a ball that he's never going to get to, but just does it in case it in the 1 in 100 it does get to him. Martinelli is exactly that player. Reminds me of Suarez back at Liverpool, where he would just run after everything because he was just trying to score goals. He loved to play the game. It seems like those players are kind of rare at Arsenal. Yeah. Like Saka, Martinelli, you need to build your side around them. So in this match in particular, I don't feel too confident for Arsenal. I think this is a chance for Chelsea to kind of break that duck that I mentioned where they were poor away from home and really set the tempo and say, we are a side who should be contending for the title. We will contend for the title, and we will beat our rivals, especially after they took away an FA Cup from them not too long ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to get bad for Arsenal. They're going to have to sit back, especially if they don't have Aubameyang.
I do feel like every week you say you feel like it's going to get bad for Arsenal. And it's
already
not
bad. They're 4 points clear of the drop.
Yeah.
4.
It's not been good, obviously. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and they are just on a poor run of form. I'm interested to see what happens after this match.
Does he have the locker room, Mikel Arteta, yes or no?
I don't think he does, which is just an indictment on the players who are just quick to turn on the manager, which is just very frustrating. I'm interested to see if they lose this match. I think just in the run of form alone, it's enough to sack him. All the other factors considered, he's young.
I don't think they should.
He could be a great manager somewhere else. And what's your alternative? Pochettino just left the market. Are you going to go sign Massimiliano Allegri? I just have no idea what to do. I do not envy the position of Arsenal. It's a recruitment problem.
It's not a managerial problem.
Yeah.
Yes, there's been bad decisions to your point, but he's dealing with very little options in midfield, save the one that's sitting on the bench unable to play.
Chelsea by 2, though, I think.
Probably. All right, Man City against Newcastle. Some questions here for Man City. Gabriel Jesus and Kyle Walker both testing positive for coronavirus. Will be out. Garcia likely out also. Nathaniel Ake maybe available to play. They are 8th on 23 points. They have the game in hand, but they have not really regained their scoring rhythm. We talk about them being a binary club with these 1-0, 1-1, 0-1 results. They've been good defensively. They've just lacking that flair that they've shown over the last few seasons. Newcastle, meanwhile, 12th in the table on 18th. They show loss to Chelsea, wins over Palace and West Brom, followed by the 5-2 loss to Leeds and a less than stellar 1-1 draw to Fulham last week. Dubravka may be back for Newcastle.
He's a very good goalie. He's one of the best actually, statistically in the entire league.
That would be huge for them, especially against the City side, who just there's chances that they get. You just need to be able to negate them.
Yeah, Sterling is a very good player in almost every aspect except for finishing.
Yeah, he's
Riyad Mahrez, very good player in almost every single aspect except for consistency and finishing.
But his goals are sensational.
Yes,
right. But they're just few and far between.
And he's a bit too one-footed as well. Fascinatingly, they have scored the least in the top 10, also conceded the least in the top 10. That's not the Man City we know. And it's just so interesting that they have gone from being a side who just could score goals for fun to being the only side in the top 10 who scored less than 20 goals. And yes, they have the game in hand, obviously, so you'll assume that they should eventually be on pace. But 19 goals in 13 games, that's a big surprise for a Man City side.
Have more goals than them.
Exactly. I don't know what to expect. With Aguero being injury-prone, Jesus out for the next 3 matches because of a positive test, and the inconsistency of their other forwards, I really don't know what to do. Maybe Liam Delap, their young guy, comes off of the reserves.
Phil Foden's got to do something here.
Phil Foden, I don't know why he doesn't play more. He's one of the most exciting players for them. Bernardo Silva has been playing a bit more than him, and Silva's a world-class player on his day. His day hasn't been around for about 2 years. He's been very poor recently. So a lot of questions at Man City, not a lot of answers, but this is going to be a tough match, I think. It's against the Newcastle side who, when they show up, they can score, but they don't show up often enough though. And Bruce is under a lot of pressure. A lot of fans want him gone. Just a lot of angst from Newcastle fans. They wanted a new ownership over the summer. They want a new coach now. They have so much talent just being wasted. This is a must-win for Man City, though. If you are a genuine title contender, if you draw this match, then you will have 6 wins, 6 draws, 2 losses. That is not title-winning form, especially when you see Liverpool 9 wins, 4 draws, 1 loss. It's a must-win. There's no 2 ways about it.
Next up, and last for the Boxing Day matches, Sheffield United and Everton. So Sheffield United coming off the 1-1 draw, which got them half of their points this year against Brighton. They remain rooted bottom of the table with 2 from their first 14. McBurney out. Mousset probably out. Lundstrom suspended. Sander Berg got the knock against United. He's done until March or April, maybe February or March. I guess not a knock, really. Chris Wilder still confident.
More of a knockout than a knock, yeah.
Chris Wilder, remains confident that they can avoid relegation, but they need these 3 points. They've got more favorable matches coming up against Burnley, Palace, and Newcastle. They need all 9 from those to at least have a shot. Crazier things have happened. It's a much different story for Everton, who've won their last 3, sit 4th on 26, all while not having James Rodriguez, Allen, Luca Digne, and Delph. Great work from Carlo Ancelotti on a team that is not that deep. It is thin, but he is managing to get good, positive results.
Exactly, and the very same thing is not happening. That was a terrible way to phrase it. At Sheffield United. You mentioned the guys out. McBurney, Mousset, 2 forwards for you who they haven't scored goals. They haven't scored goals for them in the Premier League at a rate they would want to, but they are options up front. Lundstrom, O'Connell, and Berg. That's a lot of talent that you're also missing for this next match. So they are missing a ton, a lot like Everton, who they're dealing with their own injury issues, but they've been able to handle it. And Sheffield United haven't been able to handle it.
They've scored 8 in 14.
Yeah, they need to step things up. I think Everton haven't looked great in the attacking end of things because I think no Rodriguez means less creativity. So for Sheffield United, this match to me screams one they could steal. It's a low-scoring game. It's probably going to be probably a 2-1, 1-1, something like that. If they can get on the favorable end of a 2-1, this is the kind of result they can just flip your season around like that because you go and literally more than double your point total from 2 to 5. That's a big deal because then you're chasing West Brom. You're not too far off of their heels, and you get close to having the deficit between them and Fulham.
And you've got winnable matches coming up.
Exactly.
It's a good, yes, they're thin right now, and you've got match. Weekend, midweek coming up.
But
it's going to be tough for a thin side like that.
We've mentioned for several weeks that there is still a lot of time left in the year, but you don't want to keep punting until you have more talent back. You need to kind of scrape out some results, which they haven't had that scraping ability to get those results. I think this is the kind of match where it's at home, a side who haven't scored that well recently. They're in good form, but it's going to be a low-scoring match. So if you just get Ryan Brewster, any of your forwards, if they can just convert some of the chances that you create, they're the worst side in terms of XG to actual goals. They underperform it so often, overperform this week against a side who have not been creating a lot. and you have a chance. But I think it's not too late for Sheffield United, obviously, but we're getting pretty close to the halfway point in the year. It's going to be
2 from 14.
It's going to be uncomfortable to make the argument for Wilder about why, if they can't get a win before match week 19, I'm not saying fire him because he was a huge reason why they're even in the Premier League right now. But a lot of questions need to be asked if you're not able to
you're
get
preparing
enough
for
points.
a championship promotion.
Yeah,
again.
I think this is a great chance for them. Everton are still heavy favorites though, but Sheffield United.
I think Sheffield will have it in them.
They have it in them.
2-1.
They have it in them. I think a 2-1.
I don't know where the goals come from, but 2 of them.
It's 2 of them from anywhere, wherever they can get them.
That'll do it for us looking at the Boxing Day matches. Please do enjoy your holiday safely and watch out for all those fans in stands. Makes me a little nervous, especially with this new strain that's running about. Jack, Conrad, this has been the 45. Like, subscribe, let us know what you think. Look for us on the Twitter at the 45. Take care now.